everyone, my name is Yemi. Welcome to my channel. In this video I'll be showing you how I go from that raw file to the edited picture that you just saw. So let's get started in Affinity Photo. Once you open up your file in Affinity Photo, this is what you're going to see, your raw file. Make sure you're opening your raw file. This is what you're going to see, and then you're going to go ahead and make some adjustments to your this is like what you see when you open Bridge. I think it's called Bridge when you're using Photoshop. So this is the develop panel, by the way, and develop persona. So here I'll just make a few changes, nothing too serious. Lately I stopped doing a lot on this persona. Like I would do my complete edit and then come back here if I feel like I need to change something. So this is up to you. Sometimes I tend to increase or decrease clarity depending on what I'm trying to do. For this image, the person has really good skin, so there really wasn't any need to reduce the clarity. So I just made it 1. I made it 4 rather. I made it 4 because this person has pretty smooth skin, and sometimes I want to work with some form of texture when I'm doing my edits, especially when there are things to take care of, maybe little things, but nothing too serious. Like I said, after these few changes to clarity and to brightness and a few other little things, it was time to just click on develop. So once you click on the develop, it takes you to this place where you can do your full raw edit. I'm going to start with frequency separation. I duplicated my image first so that I can have like where I'm coming from, have a view of where I'm coming from. I set my radius for Gaussian blur to 7.5. You can use any number you want to use. I tend to use that when my images are close up and when the person has really good skin. So now I'm working my low frequency layer, and in this layer I'll be using my paint mixer brush with the settings that you can see above. I use 7, sometimes I use 10. I have used 10 before. I'll probably have another video where I show you what it looks like when you use a higher strength. So I make my brush big. I make sure that my image, I zoom in so that my image fits like just the entire screen or the entire workspace that I'm working with, and then increase my brush just so that you're not, you don't need to have a really small brush except you're mixing like really tiny details. Like when I'm going to make the eyeshadow, I'll make my brush really small. When I'm mixing like the skin, like much bigger areas, I tend to use a big brush. So when you're doing this, you're making sure that you're mixing colors that are similar. So the blush area, you mix that together. The contour, nose, you mix that together. The eyes, you mix that together. The eyeshadow, you mix that together. The skin on the neck, the other parts of the body, you just make sure that wherever the color is light, you mix those areas together. When the colors are dark, you mix those areas together so that you're not transferring color from one area to the other, and then the picture starts to look funny, or the picture starts to lose its original highlights and shadows. Highlights and shadows will be lost anyway, but you have to reduce that as much as possible. Now on the high frequency layer, I started off with my patch tool. Now I use patch tool when I'm trying to move or fix skin and fix like large areas, much larger than what you do with your clone brush. For my clone brush, I would use it when I'm trying to take care of like a pimple, a really small pimple. But if it's like a big scar, I might just move like in an area where I have good skin to that area, and I'll use a patch tool for that. Now my system is a bit slow, so you can't really see in real time what I'm doing, even though this is not sped up. It's just really slow and it just looks it looks somehow. Anyway, for that color, I was trying to use a patch tool for that as well. Basically grabbing that area and then finding an area that will suit it to replace as a replacement. I use the patch tool for hairline. So if I'm trying to fix like a lace wig, like the lace trying to match it to the skin, I'll use a patch tool. I also use the in-painting brush on this layer, but I'll use that for like stray hairs. So if you have like strands of hair that's like flying around and whatnot, I would use that for I'll use the painting brush for that, because I think it's thin enough to do the job and to do it much faster than your clone brush or than your patch tool. Sometimes your patch tool might just be too big for it. So I switch between the high frequency layer and the low frequency layer. I go back and forth just so that I'm, making the changes as I go. Sometimes when I've done something in high frequency, I need to go back to my low frequency to like mix it a bit. So I switch between the two brushes, or the two, not two brushes, the two brushes, the clone brush and then the paint mixer brush. And then I also use the other tools as well. The paint mixer brush is the only brush I use on the low frequency layer. On the high frequency layer, I use the in-painting brush, like I said before, the clone brush, as well as the patch tool. There's also the healing tool. I haven't used that before, or I don't think I've used that before. I haven't really found it as useful. So I was taking care of that lash actually. I used the clone brush and then I went back to mix it so that the colors will look right. So you switch back and forth between these two layers until you feel comfortable with what you have. You can go in, look at what you have before, compare before and after to see if you're okay with what you have. Looking, in hindsight, I'm thinking that I should have mixed the neck or the shoulder area a bit more, just so that I could have a more uniform color there, but it's okay. It's just okay. I might go back and do it some other time. But this is one of those videos where I'm like experimenting to see, what other things I can do in Affinity Photo. So I'm also mixing like the edge of the brows and just underneath the brow as well, cleaning that up, because what that looked like in raw, there was high contrast, I would say, between like really strong edges, and I'm trying to soften them with the mixer brush. I don't know if I'm explaining this properly, but that's pretty much the idea. I'm also doing this for the lips, the chin, every other area that needs some form of, uniformity. Once I'm done with that, I'll go ahead and do my grouping. And once this is grouped, we are good to go. Label it as frequency separation, and frequency separation is done, or pretty much done. I can come back here and make some changes depending on how things go. I did come back actually, but sometimes you need to come back to fix some things. That's why I don't really like to merge my layers immediately and create like a pixel layer. Now we're moving on to the dodge and burn. For dodge and burn, I have a video on dodge and burn. I'll probably have it linked in the description box. There are different ways of doing dodge and burn. This is the method that I use mostly. I use the curve adjustment layer to create the layers that I want to use, or create the layer for highlights and the layer for shadows. For this part now, I'm just lowering the curve in the middle, and I'm also going to increase the curve in the middle as well for the other layer, for the dodge. So I'm going to just do these two curve layers, and these two layers will help me to bring the highlights and the shadows back to the picture. When you do frequency separation, you tend to lose some highlights and shadow, and doing this will bring them back to the picture and make them more intense than they currently are. Once this is done, I create mask for each of those layers by clicking that mask button. You can just Ctrl I and just go ahead and just do your painting, but I like to just do mask. I'm sorry that it's not showing. My system is full, so I don't have enough disk space. So I think that's why it's doing what it's doing. It's not showing you that I have inverted my mask, and my mask is currently black and I'm painting with a white brush. I'm reducing my flow to about 3. I use 3 for highlights and then 2 for shadows. I also do it depending on what I'm trying to do. So because I have makeup on this subject, there's makeup on the subject, and I'm trying to increase the intensity of the eyeshadows that have been lost. I'm going to set my flow to about 3 for that part, and also for like the highlights of the cheekbones, those places I try to use a higher flow. And then for highlights just generally on the skin, so maybe on the forehead, on the neck, I use a lower flow. I also use a black and white layer to help me identify where my highlights and my shadows should be. So I just create a black and white layer. I reduce the color red so that it's a little darker and I can easily see. This helps me when I've been staring at the screen for a long time and somehow you can't really just tell the difference because your eyes have been overworking. So this kind of helps me just see where my highlights are, where my shadows are, and identify and adjust accordingly. So now I'm using a flow of 3 for the eyelids where you have the shimmery eyeshadow, and also for the cheek I also reduce that to 2 because I think I want that to be a little more subtle. Go ahead and do this for not just the skin, but you do this for also the jewelry, anywhere that you feel needs to be highlighted or should have should be a little brighter or a little darker. I dodge and burn not just the skin, I dodge and burn the backdrop sometimes, I dodge and burn the dress, I dodge and burn the jewelry. I just do it for wherever I feel like I need some highlights or I need some shadow. Now it's up to you, and it depends on the picture that you're working with. Editing is some form of art, so basically, the more you do it, the more you find out what works for you. You find your own rhythm, your own balance, and you just get into that flow and do what you want to do. And your crowd will eventually find you, is what I would say. The people who like your work, who like your style of editing, will eventually find you. So I'm doing this for the neck. Now I feel like I should have done a little more for the neck to make the neck, match more. For that, I think I'll do a separate video. I didn't do it in this video, but sometimes when I have skin that's like really different, like different colors of skin, I'll use a gradient map to match the skin, like match head to shoulders kind of picture. Matching head to shoulder kind of works, and a gradient map will do that much better than struggling to do it with, say, frequency separation or dodge and burn. So this is where we are at the moment. Like I said, I told you I could go back to frequency separation because my highlights felt a bit intense. I went back to frequency separation layer, the low frequency layer to be specific, and then I grabbed my paintbrush and I just softened the transition between the highlight and the shadow, because that's the part that tends to look funny when you do your dodge and burn. And because I didn't create a pixel layer, I could easily just go back to that layer and do this, and my changes are immediate, so I don't have to like delete something and then go back. That's why I don't really create pixel layers immediately. I wait till I've done something, or let's say I've gone considerably far, and then I create a pixel layer. So this is pretty much it for this dodging and burning. We can now proceed to something else. You can always go, click to see your before and after to see if you're comfortable with where you're at or you need more adjustments. Next thing I'm going to do is work on the eyes. Now, this is one thing I've been experimenting with lately. And since I already had a black and white layer, sometimes I just stop at that. I just use a black and white layer and I just paint over the eye with a mask. So I put a mask on a black and white layer and I just paint with a white brush and make the eyes a little whiter. Sometimes that works, sometimes that's just enough, but sometimes I just want a little more, let's say, extra oomph. Something extra. Sometimes I want to make the eyes really blue, or I want to give it a different color. I want to make it look whiter or make it look brighter. Sometimes I want the iris to be a different color. I want pupil to be a different color. It just depends on what you're doing, and obviously you won't always experiment with your client's picture, especially when they're paying you to do something. or to do something specific. But for days when you can experiment, this is it's a good thing to do. So in this one, apart from just creating a black and white layer, I went on to create fill layers. And to create your fill layers, you have to go to the top tab. So on the layer, you can click on that and click new fill layer, and then you can use this color to, I use any color, to be honest, any color I feel like, but towards the whiter part. So I have specific colors. You can actually just Google, what's your pupil color, what's the HEX code for pupil color, or what's the HEX code for iris color, and you can use any of those things to get what you want. So once I selected that, I went for the blend modes. Now the blend modes that I think that work best when you're working with eyes, I would say the color blend mode works best, but you can really experiment, because sometimes depending on the skin tone of the person or how you shot, if you shot with like with more warmth, or you shot with more coolness, it will look different in different blend modes. But mostly color is what is like the straightforward option. So once you do that, you paint over that with a mask. Okay, so it's not, you're not trying to paint the entire face with that color. You just want to paint the eyes alone. I also went on to create another one for the iris as well. I was really feeling like I could just keep experimenting. So yes, do remember to reduce your opacity so your picture is not looking funny or looking weird. For my clients in this picture, the eyes are really small, so to be honest, all these changes I made, in the grand scheme of things, maybe they did not really matter. But the more you practice these things, the more you know how to do this when you are in a hurry or when you don't have much time. So I think it's a good idea to, always try new stuff. I created another fill layer this time to work on the iris, and this is the color that I used. I'm going to have it showing on the screen right now. I was just picking random colors, to be honest, but I have actual colors that I use. I guess in more videos you would see the other colors that I tend to use, but this is the color that I use for this video. Once that is done, you obviously go back, select the blend mode that would work for you. Always go through, don't just go, okay, she said color will work, and you just go for color. Sometimes it wouldn't work, and you find a better blend mode that would work. So don't ignore your own checks. Just do your own checks and see what works for you. Sometimes you find vivid light useful. Sometimes you find, I think there was a picture I did once and I used reflect, and it was such a good blend mode for that one, but it was for, I think it was a different adjustment layer I was trying to blend, so it's quite different. So use anyone that you think will work for you. So I grabbed my regular brush again. Make sure it's the regular brush for painting that you're using, not the mixer brush. And your flow could be 100, it could be less. It's up to you at this point. And I'm just painting just the black part of the eye, just around it, not the end, not the exact center, because that little center still has to be white in a way. It can't just show that your client is looking at something. Now that is done, we have the eye adjustments done. You can group it if you want to. I mean, naming and grouping your layers is a good thing. Just helps you for when you come back to the picture some other random day and you're not surprised by what you see and you understand what you see. Once this is done, you can move on to other things, other edits you want to do. This thing really is an art, and it's really up to you how much or how far you want to go. Next thing I did was add some brightness and some contrast, because I felt like we lost the brightness and contrast, which, to be honest, in the next few steps you see was almost pointless, but let's get there slowly. So I added some contrast to the picture, just a little bit, but then way more brightness because I felt like the picture needed to be brighter. Okay. Next thing I did was go into the blend mode for this. Now, this area I'm touching is this shadow, the other side is the highlights. Now, when you do these blend modes, sometimes you want to reduce the effect of what you're doing on the highlights or on the shadows. So that's what I'm doing there, bringing down the effect of that layer on the shadows, so it just affects it minimally, sort of. You can do this for any adjustment layer. You can increase or you can adjust the effect on either side. Next thing I did was to begin work on another layer. Now this is, like I said, up to you. This is just something else I was experimenting because I just saw it. I'm like, it looks like the photo filter you have in Photoshop, so let me try it. Then I used this color. You can use any color that you want. I kept going back and forth on this one because I was not sure what I was doing. I was not sure what I wanted. I think I was just not sure what I wanted, so I kept changing color, changing the luminosity. Is it luminosity or luminosity? Changes the is it luminosity? Now I'm not even sure. Basically, I kept switching that between the three points on that triangle to see what I would be comfortable working with. And the thing with these things, I wish there was a way to see your different colors and see which one looks best before you commit. But you kind of have to commit and then look at it and say, okay, it's not good, okay, it's good enough, okay, it's fair, stuff like that. It's not cool. I wish you could see different options at once, is what I'm trying to say. And now that you're done with this part, next thing to do is to obviously blend mode checks to see what works for you or what you like. And of course, I was just back and forth on this one, just going up, going down, trying to figure out what I would like. And I think it's because there are so many options. If I had just two options, I'll just pick one and keep it moving. That's the thing with having options. You just start you waste a lot of time basically. The thing with editing that I've noticed is that the more edit you do, the more subtle your changes start to look, and then you start to wonder whether it's important. So one thing I did was add a mask so that I can remove the effect from the eye. Sometimes when you do the lens filter like that, it would affect the color of the eye, which you already made edits and you don't want to change. So you're better off going back to create a mask and then remove the effect from the eye so that your original eye edits remain. I also removed the edit from the dress as well because I just felt it was not necessary for the dress. I think I'd have left it if the dress color was a bit muted, so maybe towards the what's it called, the brown kind of color. Next idea was group my adjustment layers, basically so I could compare back and forth and see how far I'd come. So to group, you always click on Ctrl G. I was still feeling like I had some more experimental juice within me, so I decided to continue. I really could have stopped here, but I didn't want to stop, so I created a pixel layer. Now this is the layer that I've been avoiding or that I've been talking about. So once you create a pixel layer, you can't really go back, and you can go back and make a change to your previous layers, but whatever changes you make will not affect the layer that you already created, this pixel layer. So I tend to do this when I think I've reached a point where I'm pretty comfortable with what I have, and the changes I probably want to do next are temporary, or I'm not too sure about them. So once I created this pixel layer and I put it on top of the group, I could now make like new changes, and these changes that I'm making would affect the pixel layer that I have on top. And if I decide to delete them, the other changes I made previously still remain there, so we're good. For this, I went to my black and white layer again. So this was my attempt at adding some more melanin to the skin. So to do this, I was creating black and white layers, changing the blend mode to multiply, and then reducing the opacity till I was comfortable. Having done that twice, I went on to create another layer, but this time it was the color balance. And for this one, when you're editing dark skin, sometimes it's good to add some, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. I don't really like to, personally, I don't always add blues, but I'm trying to get into it to see if it's something that I would like. So basically adding blues to the mid-tone instead of yellows. I tend to add more yellows in my editing for mid-tones than blue, but I'm trying to get into adding blues. So blue just makes it cooler and helps it to be a bit darker, so the melanin really shows that it's melanin. But then sometimes I also want that gold undertone too, so catch 22. I said to add some brightness again to it so that it could be brighter. Next thing I did was reduce the shadows just so that it's a bit brighter, because all the black and white effect has really made the entire picture dark. So everything, I grouped all these new layers I created, and then I created a mask by clicking that mask button below, and I grabbed my brush as usual, ensured that my white brush was selected. So to reset that place to white and black, you just press D, and to take you back to the white and black setting, and then you can grab your black brush so I didn't grab my black brush initially. I had to go back and click that, and then take it off wherever you want to take it off. So for me, I was taking it off the background because I really needed it to affect the skin. I probably should have taken it off the jewelry as well, but I forgot that, and also the eyes. So if you're doing yours at any point, don't forget to take the effect off the eyes, except you're comfortable with the effect on the eyes. You can always use object selection. I always say this, but I think I enjoy painting, so It's up to you. They'll say, oh, use object selection, it makes you look more professional. I don't care about looking professional, I just care about the result I get. So I mean, it's up to you really. So this is pretty much my final look. And if this is something that you liked or you enjoyed watching, please leave a comment and also click on the like button. It encourages me to make more videos. And you can also check out my other videos. There's currently one that you'll be seeing on the screen now that you can check out if you're interested. This is like the next best video for you to watch according to YouTube. So I hope that you enjoyed the rest of your time on YouTube. I hope that I see you next time.